All right, Jesse on Fire, welcome back to the channel. So we have a popular video going on right now. The Islam Makhachev and Khabib Brothers at War video is doing very well. And I love that because those are the, those are the kinds of videos that I genuinely really love doing. Like there are lots of videos where they're like filler, where I'm like, I like delivering lots of comment to my audience. And then there are videos where I am really excited to do the video. That is an example of a video I was very excited to do because it's got the narrative behind it, the story, right? The context that makes fighting the best sport in the world. A man-on-man sport with a lifetime of effort and energy poured into training, which everyone has. But you have a world champion, greatest of all time in the weight class, who has retired and is now putting all of his energy behind his little brother who trained with him his whole life. His trainer and his father just died. And it's like, it's the context there, man. It's just beautiful. That is the thing that makes me love this sport, that the stories. What's Conor gonna do now? That's what made Conor so captivating as he was coming up, is because there was so much like texture every time he was going to fight. Even still, I think the Dustin Poirier third fight is even more interesting than the last one, much more actually. Like, let's see what he's got. I want to see him face adversity. Billionaire Conor, not that interesting to me. Conor hadn't fought for a long time and just got knocked out for the first time and is fighting the same guy. That's interesting to me. Let's see what he's got. Let's see if the wealthy Conor can overcome challenges like that. I'm very interested to see how he does. And Islam Makhachev and Khabib's relationship is that. It's the same thing. And it's going to be impossible for me to root against Islam Makhachev at this point. 100%. I will throw that out. I will be rooting for him every time he fights now. And with that, what I want to talk about in this video is who he should fight next, because given the context and Khabib's history in this sport and his history in this division, to not leverage the relationships and the storylines that are left over from Khabib's career would be insane. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about who his opponents should be and why. Because when people are talking about who to match him up next against, obviously he needs a top 5, top 6. At the very least, very least, a top 8 guy. Right? And there are leftover narrative. Khabib retired at the top of the game, and there are leftover stories there that can be leveraged to launch Islam Makhachev into superstardom. And to not use those would be insane as a fight promoter, okay? So if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell, okay? This is the kind of video that I love doing because, again, for the 100th time, I am not a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I have done a lot of striking, but I don't have a world championship in anything, okay? So when we talk about like fight breakdowns, I'm telling you what I see with a very, very trained eye. I haven't missed an event since 2001, and I know what I'm looking at standing up. These guys are on a whole other level on the ground that now that I do jiu-jitsu, I realize they're doing things that I just can't even understand. It's neither here nor there. This is the part that I understand. This is the part that I understand: the business, the people, the narratives, what makes this sport amazing and how you can best leverage it. And then also predicting what people are doing behind the scenes, because I know people and I understand this business. So let's do this thing. All right. So when it comes to Islam Makhachev, there is a clear-cut path to superstardom, in my opinion. Okay. So I've been hearing a lot of people say, in the comments that they think he should fight Tony Ferguson next. I completely agree. And I don't know if most people are thinking about it in the correct context, though. Okay, because that's right. That is correct. He should definitely fight Tony Ferguson next. I think most people are thinking Tony Ferguson is a pretty big name. He's on a 2-fight slide. Islam will probably beat him, and it's a good launching pad for his career, even because Tony's probably on the way out anyway. Maybe, right? Like, sure, that's true. All of those things are true. But the reason why he's the correct play is because the Khabib and Tony Ferguson fight got called off 100 times, right? These guys were supposed to fight 5 or 6 times. Okay, so it's a fight we didn't get to see. Having Khabib fight Tony at this point makes no sense. It doesn't even make sense. But having his protege, his brother, his younger brother, train under all the same, like, that makes sense. And when should he do that fight, actually? That fight should be done on the same card as Dustin Poirier and Conor 3. Okay, so that fight is probably going to happen, I would imagine, in July. All right, so realistically, it probably happens in July. So you're going to have Dustin Poirier and Conor headlining the event. And if you have Islam Makhachev and Tony Ferguson on that card, that makes all the sense in the world, right? Because it puts Khabib and Conor in the same building. You get to see Islam Makhachev do the Khabib fight for him against Tony. If Islam wins, he can fight Conor next, okay? Regardless of the outcome of that fight, okay? This fight with Conor will still make sense. Even if Conor loses to Dustin Poirier, it doesn't matter. Like, Conor's not going to retire, okay? He's not going to retire. He's going to fight. Even if he loses to Dustin Poirier, you can do the Islam Makhachev fight. And if both of them win, right? If both of them win, then getting Islam Makhachev a shot at Conor would be a big get, right? And so it is possible, maybe, right? Maybe that you could get Khabib to confirm that if Islam loses to Conor, then Khabib will fight him. Because we've seen this before, right? When Islam Makhachev lost his opponent on the Khabib and Gaethje card, Khabib said that if anyone who fights Islam on that card, he will fight next for the title. He was trying to get him an opponent, and he used his position to get Islam, or tried to get Islam a fight, right? So it is possible, because getting at the Conor McGregor fight, regardless of the outcome, especially if Conor wins, though, especially if Conor wins, if you could set that up where it's like, if Conor fights Islam Makhachev and he beats him, I'll come back and I'll fight Conor. And that would, can you imagine the setup for that fight? Like, that fight would be almost as big, maybe as big, as if Conor fought Khabib himself. If everyone knows that if Conor comes off a victory against Dustin Poirier, and then the setup is he's fighting Islam Makhachev, and if he wins, Khabib will fight him, that could do 3 million pay-per-views or whatever, because that'll be the story. But Conor would have to be coming off a win. Okay, for it to be that big, Conor would have to be coming off of a win. So you put Tony versus Islam on the same card as Dustin versus Conor. Conor wins. If you could get Khabib to agree to it, right? Maybe he won't. Maybe he really is done no matter what. But I have a feeling that if he fights Conor, that if Islam fights Conor and Conor beats him up, I have a hard time believing Khabib's not coming out to beat him up. I have a hard time believing that Khabib wouldn't come out to beat anyone up. That's not true. Islam just losing, I don't think that coaxes Khabib out. But if Conor beats him, and he beats him decisively, I think you might be able to get Khabib to come out and do 30-0 in the biggest fight of all time. But the only way that would even make sense, to do the Khabib thing is if he beats Dustin. But if he loses to Dustin, then Islam makes sense as an opponent anyway, right? So, yeah, basically you're capitalizing on the history of both of Khabib's biggest rivals, right? Conor and Tony Ferguson, without a doubt, are the two biggest rivals in Khabib's career, right? And he never got to fight Tony, and this rematch would be the biggest fight of all time against Conor. But again, Conor's got to get a win for that to make sense at all. And candidly, if Conor beats Dustin Poirier in the rematch, I think that would represent an incredible victory for him. Dustin Poirier, I know people wrote Dustin Poirier off in that fight for whatever reason. I did. I was guilty of it too. But the fact that Dustin annihilated Conor the way that he did, and then you think back to his career, and it just validates he is the man. He's the best 155 pounder aside from Khabib, period. Right? He beat everyone else. He's beat everyone else. And so if Conor is able to come back and overcome that challenge and beat Dustin Poirier, Conor will be in a very, very good position. So anyway, that's what I got. I think they should do Islam Makhachev versus Tony Ferguson on the same card as Dustin Poirier and Conor, and then you match him up against Conor either way. But if Conor's coming off a win, man, goosebumps. So anyway, I will be rooting for Islam Makhachev I honestly think I'm rooting more for Islam Makhachev than I would even if Khabib came back himself. I actually think that I am, just because I think that means more to Khabib than his own, career at this point. Because if not, Khabib would be fighting still, right? Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe and ring the bell. I will totally acknowledge, though, the idea of rooting against Conor is unfathomable. So anybody who fights Conor, I will be just like this, just like, all right, let's just see what happens. Let's just see what happens. So anyway, this should also, to anybody who's new to the channel, put to bed any ideas that you have to be, if you understand how I view the sport, then it shouldn't be hard to understand why I can love Khabib and Conor equally, because I love greatness and I love the context behind fights. Like, I love when I know so much about these guys and where they have this thing where the fight matters so much, you know? Like, it just feels like it matters so much. That's why Francis Ngannou, that's why I will throw my head through a wall if Francis wins this fight. Same kind of thing, man. Where, anyway, whatever. Anyway, if you like the content, subscribe, ring the bell. Peace.